I live in an area pretty close to a park and a retirement facility, so my neighborhood is, for the most part, pretty uneventful. It's nice by all accounts. Next door to my building is a large field. Sometimes on the weekends or even in the evenings after work, I see random groups of people playing games of soccer or hosting some sort of team workout event if it's still light out. Outside of those kinds of things, the park is relatively empty. I like to walk there in the mornings, just basically a few laps around the perimeter of the field. At the far end is some woods, and it's just kind of calm. At night, I do sort of avoid it because it's pretty dark. No lighting system around the area besides the buildings. So, a few nights ago, I was out for a late-night walk. I was enjoying the freezing cold that is the winter right now, and the peacefulness of the practically empty but still well-lit streets. I was about to pass the field on my right, heading towards my go-to convenience store, when I noticed a figure in the distance, crouched down. At first, I thought that it was a stray dog, wandering aimlessly in the night, stopping to sniff something. I'd never seen one before, but it seemed possible given its stature. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to approach the dog, cautiously, of course, but as I got closer to the thing, something felt off. The dog seemed to look less like a dog the closer I got, so I stopped moving. Then, it stood upright on its hind legs, its eyes fixated on me. Were they glowing or just really bright colors? I guess I don't know for sure. I just stood, frozen. I was unable to comprehend what I was witnessing. Even now, how do I describe what I saw without it sounding absurd? It's not possible, I don't think. This dog, or whatever this thing was, with a dog-shaped head, dog-shaped feet. To my horror, it began to walk backwards a few feet. Then it stopped abruptly, turned its body to the right, and continued walking backwards, into the field and out of view. I'd have to pass whatever the hell this thing was in order to get to my destination, or I could just go home. I recalled its movements. They were unnaturally smooth. I recalled it staring at me. A strange sensation had washed over me. It was as if I had been pulled into a trance. I couldn't move, couldn't escape the gaze of those eyes. It was only a few moments that felt like an eternity. I had already decided that I was going to turn around and go home. It was the obvious choice, and I was making my way when I heard a horrifying howl, more like a guttural, loud growl. It was distant, but not by much. Something told me that something was terribly wrong. Call it instincts, or maybe that's just what deep fear feels like. I picked up my pace and I was running. I don't run, not for exercise, but I booked it like never before. Panic had just kind of taken over. I didn't stop until the growl was completely gone and I was at my own door. I've played the whole series of events in my head 1,000,000 times. I've tried to draw this thing. I've tried to compare it to things that I've seen online, and truly I just have no idea. I'm just insanely curious and a little terrified, wondering, what did I see that night? If anyone knows something or has any ideas, please, I welcome you to shed some light on this new mystery that seems to haunt me all the time now. Years ago, I started dating this girl named Janie. We sat near each other at work, and I basically fell in love with her the day we met. She lived with her brother in a shadier part of town. Her brother worked late nights and was never at their house. The duration of her staying in that house, I only met him once, which was a plus. But he also owned a big, scary, untrained dog. It stayed at the house, named Spud. This dog was intimidating, and not just because it was a pit bull. The first time I spent the night at her house, I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, which was downstairs. When I rounded the corner to hit the second set of steps, there was Spud, standing in a fighting position at the bottom of the stairs, blocking the bathroom, growling intently at me. That was a long night. On the days I'd accompany Janie home from work, she'd get Spud on a leash and we'd take him out for a walk just to get some of that insane energy out. We would take a walk around the neighborhood baseball fields and I'd watch this ridiculously buff animal drag my Janie around. She leans all of her body weight backwards to keep Spud from knocking her off balance as we walk. Each step we take, Spud is up front. His leash is always tight with tension as grass chunks rip up under his massive paws as he lunges and tugs, trying to get every inch. One late night, I'm over watching a movie and Janie needs to take Spud out to go potty before we go upstairs. We bundle up and we go to make a loop around the baseball fields. She and I have done this time to time, plenty of nights, and Janie's been doing it since before we even met. Two objective truths. The area Janie lived in was really bad, like stepping over junkies on the sidewalk getting to her doorstep. Never see a cop kind of place. But nobody was going to fuck with her seeing this monster jumping and lunging at the end of a leash. We brought a blunt to spark at the park. I stuffed almost a full dub sack in there trying to flex for Janie. I'm not mentioning it to try to flex now, but so you can feel the same thing we were feeling at the time. I mean, this was back in the day where you'd have to call up a local dealer who may or may not have weed to sell, who may or may not want to travel or be available on the day that you run dry. You'll never know the struggle we had to go through for a sack of that sweet Mary Jane. Actually, I guess a lot of people probably still do have to struggle for that, but just not me. Anyway, as we're walking down a small hill approaching the baseball diamond, we're planning on going into the third base dugout to light up. But as we're getting closer, Spud lets out a tremendous bark. The sound shakes my attention, and I look away from Janie, panning straight ahead. There, we both see this guy standing on the other side of the field, near the baseball line. He's barely a silhouette against the dark background of the trees and trails. We're continuing forward, but he remains frozen. Spud's just beginning to settle down as we get into the dugout. With the leash still tightly wrapped around Janie's hand, she asks to spark the blunt, and I hand it to her along with the lighter. I'm still keeping an eye on the guy, frozen in the dark. I don't know why we didn't leave. Again, probably because we had Spud there. But just as Janie puts the blunt up to her lips, the man whistles a couple of high woot-woots. Before there's time to blink, Spud is up and tearing ass out of the fenced-in dugout, taking Janie along with him and heading towards the guy. When she falls, the blunt lands under her and gets dragged into shredded dust as her body is pulled across it. But obviously that's the least of my worries, as I'm watching my girlfriend get ripped from this cage by a monster dog while he's trying to attack a strange man that's been standing in the dark. I got up and threw myself onto her just in time to watch Spud rip the leash again. All the strain that was being put on Janie's hand from the leash finally released with a violent pull that breaks 3 of her fingers. She starts screaming, and all I can do is scream, "Watch out," as Spud closed ground on the man. He remained frozen while this dog rushed at him. I for sure thought that I was about to see this man get ripped to shreds. I'm holding Janie and hollering for Spud to come back, come back. Janie tells me that she's fine, but begs me to please go get Spud. So without hesitation, I run towards 2 things that I'm currently scared of. But as I'm running, I notice that Spud is just sitting calmly in front of this dark silhouette of a man. It's so jarring to see that I stopped running. I was close enough now to where I should be able to see the man, but he's still just a body of darkness. I call out again for Spud, but no reaction from either of them. I hear Janie yelling, "Grab him." So again, I head towards the shit that I'm afraid of. Just as I approach, the man drops his hood. His face was normal, but his eyes were not. This man has pitch black eyes. And sure, they could have been contacts, but his whole dressed as death thing with a stone-cold face weren't helping matters either. I said fuck it, and I reach for the leash. As I grabbed it, Spud turns around and bites my fucking arm. I drop the leash instantly, and Spud takes off. Janie is screaming for me to follow him, and she stops mid-sentence and just starts screaming in general. I look up, and Spud is halfway across the field, running full speed, heading in the direction of the woods. But even fucking crazier than that, Death Dude is already gone. Janie has now made it halfway to me, and she's crying and yelling, "What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck?" I grab her and I say that we can go after him, but he bit me. And she looks at me and says, "That guy just disappeared. Dis-fucking-peared right in front of us. He vanished. What the fuck?" I calm her down and we decide that we need to get ourselves cleaned up and then look for Spud. When we reach her front door, there's Spud, sitting stoic at the front door, just waiting to get let in. Janie is so relieved, so that part makes me happy. But that dog, I don't know. I know it's a shitty thing to assume an animal is evil and all, but there's something so unsettling about that whole situation, all the way up to him sitting there. I did not trust this dog. Oh, and Janie's my wife now, so we still talk about this situation quite a bit, especially the whole vanishing man part. We still have no goddamn idea how to explain that one. But for curiosity's sake, we'd love to know what other people think.